Okay, good evening, Canada, or in your case, good morning, Canada. It's late afternoon over here. Great to see you all back in again. I think at this stage I'm recognizing all the names. Particular welcome to Adam, Martin, Amelia, and Sue in Hamilton. Adam is technologically going to keep us on the straight and narrow for the next while. My purpose this afternoon is simply to give you an update on the current situation in Ireland, Kerry, IT Tralee, and hopefully if you have any questions that you'll simply type them up and I will try my best to answer them. If, however, any one of you wish to have an individual conversation through Skype or Zoom or what have you, I'm happy to organize that at whatever time suits you. Bear in mind, however, that there is a 5-hour difference, so sometimes the time mightn't always suit everybody. So the current situation in Ireland is that yesterday there was 3 deaths. In the previous 48 hours, there had been none. Our figure is now up to just over 1,700. In terms of proportion to the population, it would appear, therefore, that Ontario is doing slightly better than Ireland, but then Ontario has more space available to it for this social distancing thing. Importantly, from our perspective, a country or a region can declare itself COVID-19 free if for 28 consecutive days there has been no reported case. And last Monday, Kerry, which is Tralee is the capital city in County Kerry, Kerry declared itself to be COVID-19 free. We haven't had a confirmed case for over 28 days at this point. We went into lockdown at about the same time as you went into it, and we're slowly but surely working our way back out of it. So last week, all the retailers opened again. And next week, the restaurants and pubs are going to open, but the social distance has to be worked out as to how that's going to happen. Hairdressers, barbers, and so on, they haven't been allowed to open yet. It's going to be at least another 2 weeks before that happens. I always think a good gauge of how the economy is going, of how society is going, is to keep an eye on what Ryanair are doing. And Ryanair are now selling flights to Spain and Italy starting on the 1st of July again, and are absolutely confident that they will have the opportunity to fly. They probably know stuff that the rest of us don't. At the moment, the social distance required in Ireland is still 2 meters. And that becomes our biggest problem if that was to still be in existence come next September, because it would mean that we would be down to maybe 30–35% of the total number of students that we could cater for on a face-to-face basis. However, more and more the talk is that the social distance is going to be reduced down to 1 meter, and therefore it would, in a smaller college like IT Tralee with smaller class groups, we would probably be in a position to run 80–90% of our normal face-to-face delivery. The reality is every program in the college has now a contingency plan in place, and all the contingencies are based on a blended approach at the moment. So there is no program that's going to be delivered exclusively online, but some courses within programs may be online. However, tutorials for smaller groups will be on a face-to-face basis. In the timetabling arrangements, what we are doing is, at the moment, we are prioritizing first years, because obviously it's going to be their first college experience. So we're going to attempt to deliver as much to the first years in face-to-face as we can. After that, the second priority is award years. So typically it'll be 4th year of the honours degree programs that they're going to get a priority, and any program with our courses with significant practical elements like the FAHP program, or health and leisure as we call it, the massage program, where obviously there's an important practical element that cannot be done online, that also will get priority. However, we are fully expectant that come September, the social distance requirement will still be in place to that extent, and therefore most of our programs will in fact be in a position to deliver as planned. The timetable or the schedule at the moment for the first semester is, it has been decided that we will start on the 21st of September. We had floated between the 28th of September and the 14th of September. Now the received wisdom is that we will all start on the 21st of September. That means that the induction period, registration period, and so on will be the week before that. So from the 14th onwards. The restriction that anybody coming into Ireland from a foreign country must go into quarantine for 2 weeks still exists. We're quite hopeful that come the beginning of September that restriction will have been lifted, or at the very least that when an individual turns up in an airport, that they will be able to pay for a COVID-19 test on the spot, and if they're proved clear of it, that they don't have to go into quarantine. However, our international office, the guys that you've been talking to, Jason, Lila and Eddie, they have a plan already in place whereby we're going to, if the quarantine restriction still exists, their plan is to organize a buddy system. So any new international student would be allocated a buddy who will basically do the shopping and whatever legwork needs to be done if at that stage you still have to go into quarantine. We can do this on the basis that we have a lot of international students who are staying on for another year. Maybe they came into second year, they're staying on for third year, and they're in the country. They chose not to go home for a variety of reasons, sometimes very often because the health service that there was available to them in Tralee was going to be better than the health service that might have been available to them in their home country, so they stayed on in Tralee. So they have already signed up to operate a buddy system. So the start date will be the 21st of September for all you guys. For first years coming in, it's going to be the 28th of September. So that usually we bring the first years in first. This time, however, we have decided to leave the first years out for the extra week because we don't need to semesterize the first year programs. For all semester programs, the decision has now been made by the Academic Council that there will be no end of semester scheduled exams in the first semester. In other words, our system is going to move much closer to the type of system that you'd be familiar with, whereby you will have more and more continuous assessments on a week-to-week or 2-week to 2-week, month-to-month basis. If, however, all the restrictions are lifted, that decision may be reversed to some extent. So the semester at the moment is going to run from the 21st of September through to Friday, the 18th of December. Within that, there will be the normal midterm break, which this time will be from Monday, the 26th of October through to Friday, the 30th of October. Now, that Monday happens to be a public holiday in Ireland anyway, but it means, therefore, that from the previous Friday, essentially, you're going to be off. Some students will use that as an opportunity to travel if all travel restrictions have been lifted. We also have a conferring day on the 16th of October. That's a Friday. The conferring will happen on campus in our Sports Academy building, and therefore there will be no class on campus that day. Then the second semester, because I know that some of the students from Ontario, particularly in the early childhood education program, are looking to do their work experience back in Canada, which is perfectly allowable in our case, and therefore they won't be coming to us until the second semester. Or if you decide to go home for Christmas, the second semester in Tralee will start on the 18th of January and will continue on through until Friday the 30th of April, and then there will be a week for study, and then there'll be about a 2-week period in the middle of May for end of semester 2 exams, and the presumption is that the end of semester 2 exams will go ahead as normal. There's an Easter break in the second semester also, which runs from Monday the 28th of March, or the 29th of March rather, to Friday the 9th of April. So it's a 2-week period. The week before Easter Sunday and the week after Easter Sunday is traditional in Ireland that we have that 2-week period. I don't see any questions coming up. The decision anyway, all programs are going to be delivered on a blended basis. So there will be some online, but there will be a strong element of face-to-face delivery, and we will be attempting to maximize the amount of face-to-face delivery. Like obviously in some cases, for example, in the massage program, a lot of it on a practical basis is literally, as the name suggests, hands-on. So in that case, the students and probably the instructors are going to have to be in a position to use personal protection equipment and so on. But because our numbers, again, are relatively small compared to some of the other colleges, we will be in a position to manage that. If you were in one of the bigger universities, for example, in Dublin, then you could have classes of 300, 400, 500 students, in which case the possibility of face-to-face communication would be zero, because they wouldn't be in a position to provide social distancing. Interesting there, I just mentioned university. I think you will probably all know at this stage, I sent out an email to everybody that we have, as a result of a government announcement about 2 weeks back now, that we are going to merge with our colleagues in Cork Institute of Technology, or they're our closest neighbours, and together, as of the 1st of January next year, we will be the Munster Technological University. So when you come to us in September, you will register at the Institute of Technology, Tralee, but you will actually graduate from the Munster Technological University. One of the main reasons behind going for that, the name change and the merger, is because the term university is much more recognized internationally, and everybody is in a position to identify exactly where you fit on the academic spectrum if you're called a university or referred to as university. IT Tralee is what we refer to as a university level college, but it doesn't have the moniker of university in its title. Now, from the 1st of January, the merger will happen. We will continue, however, to operate largely independent of each other for the foreseeable future, because it will be only at that stage that we will actually start to merge and to think as one. So, for example, all our programs will continue to exist on our campus. All Cork's programs will continue to exist on their campus, with no difference. If a program was viable in Tralee in the first instance, it will continue to be on this campus. But eventually, and it's going to take several years for us to merge the programs together. So for the foreseeable future, our programs are going to be slightly different to Cork's programs. So somebody who graduates maybe with a degree in marketing from Cork might have a slightly different set of modules completed or courses completed, rather than compared to their colleagues in Tralee. But the value of the qualification will be the same. Can you clarify if all students will be required to travel to Tralee for orientation date? I calculate they will need to arrive September the 1st to meet quarantine deadlines. Is this correct? If the program starts on the 21st of January, and if they needed to be in quarantine for the 2-week period prior to that, they will need to be in Tralee from about the 7th, so the first week of September, maybe rather than the 1st of September. What will happen in the normal induction period, which goes on ahead of the first lectures, so it'll be the week before, when Eddie will do his thing for all the international students together, and then I have a breakaway section with the Canadian students. That can all be done online this time. So even if the student is in quarantine, they can be doing their induction program online at that time. It may mean that registration is going to get slightly delayed, but that won't necessarily be a problem. The international office will be in a position to manage registration for the any incoming international students in the first week of class, rather than them having to be in to turn up physically in advance for their registration. The other issue about registration is that you have to be a registered student in IT Tralee before you can get the GNIB card. But the Gardaí is our immigration bureau, the Gardaí being our local police service, and they will tend to be quite flexible in that. So you have up to 90 days anyway between registration before you have to have the card in place. So that won't be a problem. Should students firm housing now? Yes, all students who are availing of what we call the IT Tralee package will have declared to the international office that they want to reside in Tralee Town Centre apartments. So that will need to be confirmed reasonably soon. If you sign up with our international office, they'll be in a position to book that for you. Now, bear in mind, if you pay a deposit to us or to us to pay to Tralee Town Centre apartments, your deposit will continue to be safe. From the academic side, the tuition fee deposit will be safe right through until September. If we have to pay a small deposit to Tralee Town Centre apartments, they may not be in a position to repay that deposit, but that won't happen until the middle of August. So therefore, any deposit you pay, even to them, is going to be entirely safe if you decide that I'm not going to come, or if something arrives in the meantime. In addition to that, however, if, for example, somebody had paid a deposit to Tralee Town Centre apartments and then decided that, well, no, I'm not going to go to Ireland after all, maybe there's a second wave of COVID-19 or what have you, then what we would be in a position to do is sell off your apartment, shall we say, as it were, and therefore some other student moves in, so they will repay the deposit back to you rather than to Tralee Town Centre apartments. So from the small college point of view, we can continue to be entirely flexible in terms of financial arrangements. So, as I'm saying, when you turn up at typically Dublin Airport, you should have your documentation with you. Number one, your passport, and make sure now that your passport has at least 1 year of validity on it when you arrive. Secondly, you are therefore entitled as a Canadian citizen to come into Ireland at any point, at any time you wish, and to be here for 90 days. However, the immigration office at Dublin Airport might want to talk to you about why you're actually here, as distinct from being a tourist, and therefore it'll be useful for you to have your IT Tralee documentation offering you a popular position or place on a full-time program. You should also bear in mind that our electricity system is slightly different to yours, in that throughout Europe we operate on the basis of a 220 volt system compared to your 110 to 120 volt system. The implications are not huge, in that if you plug your mobile phone into our system, the mobile phone charger will adapt automatically to the different electricity voltage. The same will apply for your laptops, for your cameras, and so on. So the only time that will be an issue for you is if you have an item that has a motor built into it. So for example, a hairdryer, an electric razor, or what have you. So if you want to use a hairdryer, your hairdryer in Ireland, number one, you will need a converter, something that will convert from the 110 that it is designed for up to the 220 on our side. However, my suggestion to you is don't bother. Come to Tralee and you'll be in a position to pick up a cheap hairdryer while you're here. It'll be suited to our electrical system. It'll have the right plug at the end. However, you will need an adapter, an electrical adapter that is suitable for the Irish electrical system for your mobile phone. And you're probably advised to have one of those coming up with you. So if you go into Canadian Tire or somewhere, they'll be in a position to provide them to you. You're not looking for one that is suitable for Europe. You're looking for one that is suitable for the United Kingdom, because again, the shape of our plug is slightly different to on the rest of continental Europe. Lyndall asks, do we need to have a return ticket? Usually if you book a flight, and there's a return element to it, it will be cheaper for you. However, that would be entirely up to you. Our second semester will finish by the end of May. So if you're booking a return ticket, the end of May will be the time to look at it from. However, Aer Lingus, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure that the offer still exists, but I presume it does. But if Aer Lingus being our local national airline, they had a system whereby you could book the return flight with them, and then you had an entirely flexible ticket. So you might specify, and I'm going to return home on the 25th of May. But if you wanted to change the date with other airlines, they're going to charge you maybe an extra $100, $200 just to change the date. Aer Lingus built in full flexibility for international students, and therefore you could change it, as in to push it out into June or bring it forward if you so wished. And that same flexibility element was also on offer to the family or friends of international students who might be coming over to visit you for during the year. Can you touch on costs of mobile phone plans in Ireland? How much cheaper than Canada? Canadians can bring their own unlocked phone to use in Ireland. Yes, Canadians can bring their own unlocked phone to use in Ireland. What many of our international students do is you bring your smartphone with you with your Canadian SIM card and so on, but almost certainly it will have 2 SIM slots in it, and then you can pick up a relatively cheap SIM card in Ireland for the second SIM slot. So you'll still have your Canadian phone, but there'll be a built-in Irish element with it as well. My own daughters, who are both students, operate or use a company called Tralee for their mobile phone contracts. And basically what they do is they spend €20 at the beginning of the month, and they're on a payment plan. For that €20, you get free calls, free text messages, and all-you-can-eat data for a period of 28 days. And it is only after those 28 days that the €20 actually begins to dwindle. Now, it can last for a long, long time after that, depending obviously on the usage you make of your phone. If, for example, on the 29th day you start downloading movies from Netflix or whatever, then your €20 is going to dwindle very, very quickly. But some students will manage fine, so that €20 paying on the 1st of September is going to last well into October. And the particularly important thing is the all-you-can-eat data. I would recommend also, in terms of your mobile phones, that there will be certain people back home in Canada that you will want to be in contact with on a regular basis, family, friends, or what have you. Just make sure that they're all signed up to FaceTime or WhatsApp or whatever, so that you can have the free service and it's not going to be costing a lot of money. Now, having said that, I would suggest that you don't sort out your mobile phone or cell phone contract at the moment. Wait until you get into Tralee, because in the town centre all the different mobile phone operators are there, so you'll be in a position to do a direct comparison just to go from one shop to another shop. Or there is a company called Carphone Warehouse who are in a position to provide you with a contract for any one of the mobile phone operators, and therefore they become particularly useful. Overall, in addition to that, the cost of living in Ireland, you will probably find, is about the same as in Ontario. Now, when I say the same as in Ontario, I'm saying the same as in Ontario that is not Toronto and not Ottawa, because like Dublin, Toronto and Ottawa is much, much more expensive in terms of day-to-day living. About 3 years ago, we had a student from Kingston. He was a married man with 2 children. So his wife and children stayed back in Kingston, and he came to Tralee, but he was on a budget, naturally enough. And therefore, he took a detailed record of everything that he spent in Ireland. And he found that it cost him about as much to live for 1 year in Tralee as it would have to live for 1 year back in Kingston. Some things are more expensive, some things are significantly cheaper. Like the mobile phone plan is likely to be significantly cheaper. Some groceries will be a little bit more expensive because we're a small island, and therefore much of our food product is going to be imported. The important thing, however, from your point of view in terms of comparing our prices with your prices, is that if you were on, say, the Tesco website, Tesco be one of our bigger supermarkets, or Dunnes Stores website, and they give you a price, that is the price that you will actually pay at checkout. Because in Europe, if you're quoting a price to the consumer, it has to include all taxes. Whereas you're in a system whereby the price that's on the website or the price that's on the shelf edge is going to be different by the time you get to the checkout, because you're going to have to pay sales tax on top of that. We don't have that in Ireland. So if you apply the sales tax to it, the cost of groceries will be about the same there as it is here. Tralee, however, is about 25% cheaper for a student to live for 1 year than our two local cities, Limerick or Cork, and is about 50% cheaper, according to the statistics, compared to a student living in Dublin. Hiba asks, can you consider making fall semester 2020 online and keeping practical and laboratories for second semester? Each individual course board, Hiba, will make their own decisions as to what modules are going to be delivered in the first semester and what modules are going to be delivered in the second semester. Now, there will be some situations whereby some course boards have swap modules. So a module that is entirely theoretical based and is in the second semester, that put that into the first semester so that more of it could be delivered online. The reality, however, is that an awful lot of practical programs, like, as I say, health and leisure and massage and so on, they are going to have practical elements, significant practical elements built into each individual course that the student is doing. Also, all the research recently, immediately lockdown happened, the bigger universities like Trinity College Dublin and NUI Galway and so on, they decided that all our delivery is going to be online from September. And they have now spent the last month backtracking on that, on the basis that it really doesn't suit the student. It would be difficult to ask an Irish student to pay €3,000 fees plus whatever the registration is, and then sit at home and take the program on your laptop. And that's just an Irish student. It's much more difficult, obviously, to ask an international student to pay us the fees, but you can sit at home. However, in a minority of cases that may be possible, but in most cases, it won't be. Can students submit unofficial final transcripts at this point? Most colleges are not issuing transcripts. Yes, in the last few days, we've got several students coming in with unofficial transcripts, and they're perfectly acceptable as long as we can identify the college and so on. And then by the time we come to September, an official transcript will be, or a copy of an official transcript will be required at that stage when you're registering. But even at that stage, you know, if your own college isn't in a position to give the full official transcript at that point, again, we're reasonably flexible, such that as long as you have submitted the transcript to prove your eligibility for the program at some point before you actually will be issued with results. Will there be a bus pickup from Dublin Airport? And if so, will it still be for September the 1st? Yes, there will be a bus pickup from Dublin Airport, Lyndall. It may not be September the 1st. Last year it was September the 1st because we were looking at a start date of about the 14th. Well, actually, last year was about the 7th of September. So this year it will depend on what information the international office is getting as to when the students are likely to come in. So once we have that 14th of February set in stone, because the academic council still has to rubber stamp it, then the international office will be in a position to advise you as to when you should be coming into the country. Normally, we would have tried to coordinate it such that international students would all come together on the same day, if at all possible. That's not always possible, but we would have a 52-seater coach at Dublin Airport to bring down students. If social distancing is still in existence, that's not going to be possible, and therefore we're going to have a number of coaches, but that becomes our problem. We have promised you that we will provide a bus service from Dublin Airport. Now, excuse me, some students, if possible, or traditionally would have come in a little bit earlier so that they could spend some time in Dublin to have a look around there. Or some students wanted to come in a little bit later, and therefore the bus pickup mightn't be available. If that was the case, you would get a refund by the time you got to Tralee that would pay for your train costs from Dublin down to Tralee. I don't think there are all the issues that I had written down that I just wanted to make sure that you were familiar with. Have been covered at this point. As I have said to you previously, Don't expect IT Tralee to be the same as the college you will come from. IT Tralee is different to Humber, different to Seneca, different to St. Clair, and so on. Equally, Tralee is different to whatever town that you're coming from. Ireland is different to Canada, and that becomes the real purpose of the educational system or of international education. However, some of the differences, again, just to remind you that you may expect to see is that number one, on the first day of lectures, you're unlikely to get this type of detailed class plan from an Irish lecturer that you might be used to from your Ontario lecturers. We tend to be a little bit more flexible, shall we say, in that respect. On the other hand, typically we will have an end of semester exam that is worth an awful lot more marks and much higher weighting than what you're used to in your Ontario college. Because of COVID-19, as I said, most final exams have been cancelled, shall we say, at this stage. So we'll be reverting back to a more continuous assessment-based system that you'll be used to. However, the value to for the international students' point of view of having the significant final exam means that by the time you come into Ireland, new college, new classmates, new place to live, and so on, you're not going to have a continuous assessment of any description for a number of weeks, and therefore it gives you time to settle in. And as a student from St. Lawrence College said to me last year, it doesn't matter if the exam is worth 50% or 70%. If you've been in class and done what you were supposed to do, you're going to pass it anyway. Yaniv asks me regarding course selection, how will that work? I presume, Yaniv, that you mean in a case where there are electives to be taken. On the massage program, there is only a minimal elective choice that's available to you. It's a fairly prescribed program, but any of the electives that you wish to take, you won't have to make that decision until the first week that you're with us. And typically in the first week, if there are electives, you will be given the opportunity to sit in on the first class of each of the different electives, just to make sure that number one, you know what you're going to be doing for the rest of the semester, and get a free sample, shall we say. And also not just a free sample of the course itself, but a free sample of the lecturer that you're going to be with for the next 12 weeks. You know, another difference you will find is accent. Our accent is a little bit different to yours. And if you're going to have to listen to a lecturer with a very strong Kerry accent, you may decide, no, I'm going to choose my elective based on the other lecturer. I can understand them a little bit better, and so on. So that might be one of the practical realities that you should take account of. One of our great writers, a gentleman called Oscar Wilde, he famously described our respective neighbors, the United States and Great Britain, as two great nations divided by a common language. And I think the same thing probably applies for Ireland and Canada. You know, we both more or less speak the same language. It's called English, but there are lots of differences, and therefore it's going to take you maybe a while, a whole week, to come up to our language or come down to our language, depending on which way you're looking at it. Okay, if there are no more questions, as I say, number one, if you want information, the guys at KOM Consultants in Hamilton will be delighted to help you. You've probably already come across, had conversations with Martin, Amelia, or Sue. So they're there constantly to help you. Alternatively, feel free to contact me at any point. It doesn't matter what the question is. Don't ever feel that you are getting in the way, that you're bothering us in any way. That's what we get paid to do. So if you have any question at all, feel free to email me anytime. Or as I said, if you just want to have a chat, because sometimes it's easier to ask questions when you're in a face-to-face environment. So if you wanted to organize a Skype call or a Zoom call, I'd be happy to do that for you at any time. Okay. So if that's all the questions, I just see a note here from Martin. Thanks so much, sir. Perhaps we can run another session in a few weeks for another update. Absolutely, I would be happy to do that at any point. The next lifting of restrictions is going to be not this coming Sunday, the following Sunday. A new layer of restrictions are going to be lifted, and almost certainly that's going to bring with it greater clarity as to what we can do, particularly what we can do in terms of social distancing and so on. As I say, I'm still confident that at least 80 to 90% of our face-to-face communication can be done in September, and largely because we have relatively small classes compared to some of the bigger colleges. So it may be a case that in a classroom setting, lecture theatre, for example, that would normally seat 120 students, it might be reduced down to a capacity of 50 students, and therefore it might mean that a lecturer has to deliver the same lecture twice, but that will be a small price to pay just to get us through this current situation. So Martin just confirms that you can contact info@komconsultants.com if you have any questions, and the guys in Hamilton, as I say, will be delighted to help you. So I will say good evening to you all, or probably still late morning on your side of the Atlantic. It was lovely talking to you all again, and hopefully we will get a chance to talk face to face eventually in the first week of September. So I'll talk to you. Bye.